Hey, this is my pitch to you guys, why I should be chosen as the Young Project Manager of the Year 2019. I am Anna Tenhunen. My background is in bioproduct and environmental engineering. I'm currently working at VTT as a senior scientist and project manager with circular economy projects, especially circular plastics. I am 29 years old. I live on a little farm with my animals, and I'm also a PhD student at the Helsinki University. So I work full time at VTT and also carry on my PhD studies. I need to tell you just a little bit about VTT so that you can fully grasp onto the project that I applied to this competition with. So VTT is one of the leading research, development and innovation organizations in Europe. We have over 2,000 personnel and we're fully owned by the government of Finland, more specifically the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment. The reason for VTT's existence is actually that we are able to create economical benefits for the Finnish society through technological innovations. For VTT, there are several different ways that we can operate and receive funding from. A really important part is a publicly funded research, so different European projects, European Horizon 2020 program, for example, which we are very established in, other national calls, and so on. We also do direct customer work based on also the IPR that we already have developed, or just coming up with totally new innovations, or doing different types of development work. And then we also have direct governmental grant, which is really important and crucial for IPR development. And then with our patents, we typically license them, or in some cases, we also sell them. And we are also establishing a few spin-offs per year. We have identified within VTT these lighthouses and opportunities, which kind of guide us through our research. And especially from the resource efficiency lighthouse, we have the sustainable non-renewables opportunity, where this plastic challenge new opening was identified, and which was what led to the project that I applied into this competition with. I think this is quite a familiar picture to you all. It reflects very well to the problems that are in relation to the current use of plastic and the fact that the recycling scheme is not established. However, it is a societal necessity. It is estimated that by 2050 the demand will quadruple, and we're already producing around 350 million tons of plastic annually. But then, on the other hand, since 1950s mass production, 80% of all the plastic that has been generated has ended up in landfills and environment. So it's a very challenging problem where there lies a lot of opportunities in trying to solve this. This is VTT's circular plastics vision, which myself and my colleague have been working on for the past year. So the principles need to be that we minimize the inflow and outflow, and we keep the materials and products in the loop as long as possible. So minimizing the virgin feedstock loop, very essential in terms of mitigating climate change, is to minimize the fossil inflow, and bringing in the virgin feedstock from bio-based sources like wood biomass or agricultural side streams, as well as CO2, so carbon dioxide from the air, as a feedstock for plastic production and then further product manufacturing. And then as we go more out from the reuse loop or the use phase, the energy demand and the use of chemicals increases. So in order to be as sustainable as possible, we need to keep it in the first loops as much as possible. So for example, supporting the reuse model, and then mechanical recycling, and then chemical recycling, and at the end energy recovery. So these are kind of basic principles that we have as a kind of an action plan towards the circular plastics. One of the greatest assets of VTT is having the experts, but also the equipment and machinery to take these innovations, whether it is material or processing based, from the lab all the way to the pilot scale. And this is typically has high risk and it is very costly process to scale up something. So the kind of the whole process of developing something and increasing the TRL level throughout, it is something that is very important to actually get the innovations to the markets. Now we can go more in detail to the project. It is called ASAP, Accelerating the Sustainable Age of Plastics. So for ASAP, it all started in the late 2018 when the government of Finland decided to dedicate more funds towards research. And the VTT got a certain amount from that funding decision, and then internally our bosses wanted to focus on the additional funding towards new openings where we could grasp on, where we really have the opportunity to be leaders in. So that's when the challenge, kind of the plastic challenge, arose. And we, it was the beginning of December, so we only had a few weeks to actually come up with the project proposal for our internal managers to review and accept. So we had several different inputs that we used for the project structure, and then we actually came up with the idea of focusing a lot of the budget on 90% of the budget actually on integrative experimental work. So at VTT, sometimes the challenge is to get the different research teams to work together. So there might be approaches where there might be two teams working together. But to solve the circular plastic challenge, we need to have several different expertise come in from a very multidisciplinary approach. So it was actually one of the requirements for funding that you would have an integrative approach. So we came up with these spearheads, which had a major part of the funding from initial stage. And in the kind of one of the categories was integrating mechanical and chemical recycling technologies and also process analytics. Then we have this identification of plastic additives, where we actually are developing sensors that can go beyond the plastic surface to see into the polymer additive matrix, that what kind of additives have been used, as they are typically harmful substances and are bottlenecks for recycling. And then we have this concept where we are looking at coming up with this kind of recycle end-of-life assessment tool for recycling new bio-based materials. In addition to these spearheads, we formed a plastic think tank with a quite teeny tiny budget, but the idea was just to facilitate and support the communication between different researchers and research teams. So we had events and workshops where we actually promised funding if they could come up with an integrative approach that solves a current problem. And at the end, we actually ended up having 7 openings from the plastic think tank work. Overall, the targets of ASAP was to develop know-how and technology and IPR for the circular plastics concept, and also develop and instill new ways of cooperation within VTT, as well as VTT stakeholders. And also important part to increase the funding from the different sources was to strengthen VTT's visibility in the field. This is a 1-year project, and basically for the execution, like I said, we had 4 spearhead projects, 7 new openings, and we had over 100 personnel working on this project. As results, we had continuing projects in the worth of around 10 to 12 million euros, including planned projects as well, so not just applied and funded projects. We had 2 invention disclosures. We created and strengthened the IPR, especially through increasing the technology readiness level of our technologies. We are publishing several articles. We have formed a few PhD positions, which of course support the scientific excellence, as well as me and my colleague were working on the VTT Circular Plastics Vision paper, which is to be published at the end of this year. Reflecting on the project, I think the key elements for a successful project was successful collaboration and communication. So all the funded projects had to come up with a task-specific plan. So they had to fill in a Gantt chart, which had one deliverable per subtask, so they would be in sequence. And we actually executed this phased-out funding, where it was based on completion of these subtasks and review of the results. This way, we could keep up and make sure that the results were ambitious enough for the set targets. We did quite a lot of project pitching, where they could practice delivering their projects and innovations with emphasis on the team. And we had quite many ways to facilitate the spawning of new ideas. So the cross-disciplinary workshops as well as interactive platform, the kind of online platform tool. And of course, a very important key was here to have support for the continuation. So the project funding ends this year. So to keep the great work going, it was essential to come up with new projects. There were actually several challenges that I faced during the project, and quite many learnings that came out of the challenges. So one of the biggest problems that we had, that there were quite a lot of personnel who actually resigned, and the biggest problem was when our project owner actually resigned quite early on in the project, and we were left without a project owner. So I took the role of a project owner as well, and also quite a lot of her work that she had, and to overcome that was uh, quite important. And there were also other personnel, including a task leader and some key personnel from the experimental work side. And as there were also longer sick leaves, the extra load from the leaving personnel was something that had to be handled. And as we are a project organization, the several different parallel projects that people have, it of course creates challenges. And as we had the funding for only a year, it was crucial that we would be able to focus on this project. So there were quite a lot of different discussions on the personnel who were in the project, as into how can they prioritize their work together with their team leaders, as well as bringing in new personnel, of course from VTTs, but new personnel to the project, and quickly helping them to get onto the tasks at hand. Unfortunately, there were also some disputes among personnel, but nothing that could be handled. Um, One of the biggest challenges also was chemical safety issues, as we deal with plastic waste and there are a lot of harmful substances, and as we try to see how we could process and recycle them, we typically heat them. And when we heat them, a lot of toxic chemicals can be released. So tackling the chemical safety issue actually set us back a few months on some of the tasks that we had, as we had to be sure that it would be safe for our personnel to work at. So I think that's something that definitely lean processes could help overcome quicker. And there were also some equipment failures, which had to be then um, fixed, and some new parts ordered. So there were some setbacks in the time schedule that was, but we were able to, with good communication, come up with new schedules that didn't interfere too much with other project work. And then to highlight to you guys why I think I should be chosen as Young Project Manager of the Year, the way that I see that I am a project manager and what kind of project manager I want to be. I want to be encouraging and approachable, but also to be approachable, you have to be available and really listen when even though it's hectic around, you have to pay attention. And a very important thing for me is to keep a positive spin on everything. So the negativity, it doesn't really help to solve any issues. So positivity is really important to me, and installing the kind of positive spirit within my project personnel. I'm also precise and diligent, And I want to ensure that the same rules apply for everyone. It is very also important to me. And I'm also ambitious and results orientated. And I think one very important point for me is that at VTT, project management, it is something that younger researchers especially are not really going towards, and it's not something that is perceived maybe as interesting or something that they want to focus on. So through this competition and maybe the acknowledgement, I want to highlight to the younger researchers that you can actually get acknowledged for being a manager and that it is really important work. So in a way, I also want to inspire the other researchers at VTT. Thank you.